Hey everybody, in this video we're going to take a look at another political shift, but this time it's going to be the presidential trends between 2020 and 2024. So these are the trends, not the swings. We already took a look at those in a previous video. Sometimes there's some confusion between a swing and a trend. We're going to go through it, but real quick, a swing, it just compares the margin from one election to the next. A trend compares those individual state swings to the broader national swing. Then we can get an idea of how these states moved compared to the overall national movement. If it's a little confusing, no worries. We're going to go through this spreadsheet. So this first column is going to be for the states. The second column is the 2020 popular vote for Biden, the 2020 popular vote for Trump. Then we've got the 2024 popular vote for Harris, and then we've got Trump. Then we've got the 2020 margins, followed by the 2024 margins. Then the next column is going to be the swing, and that's going to be the difference between those two margins. And finally, the last column, which is the most important one for this video, it's going to be the trends. And there's also going to be shading in these two right columns. The darkest colors are 10 or more points. The lightest colors are going to be under 5 points. So we've got to get our baseline here for the trends. So for that, we've got to look at the national vote. Now you can also do this for individual counties if you'd like. But in 2020, Joe Biden got 51.3% of the popular vote. Donald Trump got 46.8. In 2024, Kamala Harris got 48.4. Donald Trump is at 49.9. The margin in 2020 was a 4.5% Biden win. The margin in 2024 was a 1.5 point popular vote win for Trump. So if you add those two numbers together, that is a 6-point swing toward Trump. That is fairly significant, and that's going to be our foundational number that we compare all the other states to. So there's no national trend, but hopefully you've got a better understanding at the data we're looking at. I try to take most of it from Wikipedia and Dave Leap's Atlas of Presidential Elections, and I was even able to update some of these numbers from when I did the shift video a few weeks ago. And so let's take a look at the first state. We've got Alabama. In 2020, Biden got 36.6. Trump was at 62. In 24, Harris dipped to 34.1, and Trump went up to 64.6. The margin in 2020 was 25.4 for Trump. In 2024, Trump went up to 30.5. That's a 5.1% swing toward Trump. That's pretty good. However, if we compare that to the overall national swing of 6, that 5.1 is less, and it's less by 0.9. So that means as the country swung 6 points toward Trump, Alabama trended 0.9% toward the Dems. So that's how this works. Even though every state did swing toward Trump, some of them decisively, not too many are going to have done so by 6 points. So let's go through these states. We've also got a map coming up, and we'll talk a little bit more about it at the end. So Alaska trended 2.9% bluer. Arizona swung 5.8 toward Trump, but that was still a 0.2% trend toward the Dems. Arkansas trended bluer by 3%. California is the first state that trended red. It swung 9 points toward Trump. That's massive. That's more than the 6-point national swing, so that comes out to a 3% trend toward the Republicans. Colorado trended bluer by 3.5. Connecticut by 0.5 point. Delaware 1.8. Florida had a massive red shift. They were able to overcome the national swing and get even redder. They did so by 3.8. Georgia trended bluer by 3.5. Hawaii, very little trend there, but it did swing red enough to trend right by 0.3. Idaho did the exact same thing in the opposite direction, only 0.3. And how about Illinois here? After I updated the numbers, it looks like they swung exactly as the nation did. 6 points toward Trump. That means there is no trend whatsoever. So Illinois turned out to be the perfect state on here, and it was the only one. Now we've got a bunch of blue trends. Indiana by 3.1. Iowa by an even 1. Kansas 4.4. Kentucky 1.2. Louisiana 2.6. Maine 3.8. Maryland 1.3. But Massachusetts, it is a blue state, but it swung red enough to defy the trend of most of the other states, and it got redder by 2.3. Michigan, Trump flipped it this time, but it trended 1.8 bluer. Minnesota also bluer by 3.1. Mississippi had a slight trend toward the GOP of 0.4. More blue trends. We've got Missouri at 3, Montana 2.4, Nebraska 4.4, Nevada 0.5 point, New Hampshire 1.6. But then we come to New Jersey, and we all know that state swung very hard toward Trump. That was by 10 points, and that was a lot more than the 6-point national swing. So that comes out to a 4% trend toward the right for the Garden State. New Mexico trended a little bit toward the Dems by 1.2. New York had the biggest swing out of all the states, just a little bit more than New Jersey at 10.3. And that also comes out to the biggest red trend on here at 4.3. North Carolina, though, went in the other direction by a similar margin, 4.1. North Dakota also bluer by 2.8. Ohio, 2.9. Oklahoma, 4.8. Oregon, 4.2. And Pennsylvania by 3.1. In Rhode Island, it managed to swing red enough that it was able to trend also toward the right by 1.1. South Carolina almost pulled in Illinois, but it did get redder by just 0.1%. South Dakota bluer by an even 3. Tennessee trended 0.5 point redder. Texas also had a big enough swing that it trended 2.1 toward the GOP. Utah only had a little bit of a swing toward Trump, so therefore it trended a big 4.8 toward the Dems. And the rest of these trends are also toward the Dems. We've got Vermont at 2.2, Virginia 1.1. Washington State had the biggest trend toward the left out of all the states. It only swung 1 toward Trump, and that comes out to a 5% trend toward the Dems. West Virginia by 3.0, Wisconsin 4.4, and Wyoming 3.5. And then Washington, D.C., another even 3% trend toward the Dems. So those are all the states and all the trends. Hopefully it makes enough sense. But if you're more into visuals, we can take all this data and apply it to a map. If we do that, this is what it looks like. And again, we've got similar shading here. The darkest shades are going to be 10 or more, but this time the lightest shades are going to be under 1%. So we've got 4 levels of shading, and we also have the congressional districts in Nebraska and Maine. So what are the takeaways from these trends? Well, you might be thinking Trump won by such a convincing margin, even winning the popular vote this time. Why are there so many blue states on here? Well, I think there's 2 ways to answer that. The first reason is that given nationally, there was a big 6-point swing toward Trump. It was going to be pretty tough for every individual state to be able to match that outcome. So even though some of these states trended bluer by 1 or 2 points, they still swung 3 or 4 points in his direction. So that might make this map look a little bit misleading. And maybe the best example of that is going to be in Arizona. It swung 5.5 toward Trump. That's very significant, but it still trended a 0.5 point toward Harris. So on a glance, it might make this look like Harris had a better night than she did. But the reality is, it's just hard for every state to be able to swing 6 points in one direction or the other. Now, the other explanation about these shifts is going to be simple. States with large populations like California, Texas, Florida, and New York, those states got so red that they actually trended to the right. So even though half of those states, California and New York, are blue, there was so much movement there toward Trump, just like there was in Texas and Florida, that's what boosted the national swing toward Trump by a massive 6 points. So those population-heavy centers inflated the national popular vote swing by so much that smaller, even much redder states were unable to keep up with it. That's the simplest way I can put it. And as we've talked about, that is a big reason why Trump was able to win the popular vote. But it's pretty tough to imagine a super red state like North Dakota getting even more than 6% redder than it was in 2020. A few states did defy it, like Mississippi, Tennessee, and South Carolina. But that's where Trump was just especially dominant. Most of the other states outside of the battlegrounds were not particularly close. Other states in the Northeast like Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New Jersey, they moved so much in Trump's direction that he was able to get a lot more national popular vote out of it, but he still obviously did not win any new states there. And on the other end of the country, in the Northwest, in Washington, that was the only state that managed to trend at least 5 points to the left. That and Nebraska's 3rd, which is one of the reddest places in the country. So those states are completely opposites politically. But again, there was not much more there for Trump to squeeze out of in Nebraska's 3rd, and Washington State kind of did its own thing. Very little movement there toward Trump. So it would look like the Democrats are going to be pretty strong in that state going forward. As for the other states, anything that's under a 10-point or especially a 5-point margin, maybe these trends could continue and the states could actually be competitive in 1, 2, or 3 elections. But it's just one election, and if any election was very unique, it's going to be the one we just had. But there's some good data here, and congrats to Illinois for being spot on with the national swing. It's not the most important data out there, but I'm going to leave it there for now, so let me know in the comments. What do you think about any of the trends in any of these states? What are the reasons these states moved more in one direction or the other? Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.